what the Church of Scientology is so afraid of.
This is SPTV.
Welcome, everyone, for a bit of SPTV. AA Run is here, joined by Sterling. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. How are you? No intro.
I did the SPTV intro this time.
Okay.
Usually I would have your channel already pulled up here. So let me do that.
No worries.
Just to show everyone. We got some great stuff to talk about today. One of the things I'm super excited to talk about is the prospect of Bijou Phillips and Danny Masterson showing the world what a hypocrite and what a horrible father and a degenerate Tom Cruise is by comparison, because I believe that Bijou Phillips is about to grant Danny Masterson's request for visitation, totally torpedoing the idea that Scientology's rules are the reason Tom Cruise disconnected from his daughter Suri, when in reality it's because Tom Cruise is a horrible person.
Right.
Okay, right. So if you're not subscribed to Sterling yet, you can find him over at Sterling Tompkins on YouTube at Leaving Scientology and Loving Life.
Thank you.
And we might be joined by Jackson here soon. Wwe'll see. Not quite sure if that's happening. Okay, so Tom Cruise, Danny Masterson, David Miscavige. Where would you like to begin?
Well, we were talking a little bit about Danny Masterson the other day, and I did a quick video on just the subject of him going away and how that whole thing went down with the Declare issue, which I found, I mean, it's fascinating to me that, people have said, and I've heard it, like even in my chat the other day was, well, I said Scientology's changing things. They're doing things differently. And someone piped in the chat and said, well, I don't get, how are they doing? They're not changing anything. They're not doing anything. And I would argue with that even this silent or whispering Declare thing, which started a while back, and particularly in regards to Danny Masterson, it's just a fascinating change of events, because as you and I know, being longtime Scientologists, that if it's not in writing, it's not true. You're not supposed to accept word of mouth of anything.
Yeah. Here, let me bring Jackson in real quick since he's here.
He's here. Nice.
Hey, boys.
Hey, Jackson. How's it going?
Hey, what's up?
Not too bad.
How you doing, man?
Pretty good. I got some, I didn't mean to step on your toes. We talk about, I got some new eyewear I wanted to check just to increase so I can read the small print, but I wanted to know how that looks. These were on sale.
Okay.
And then these, I saw these just stuck right out.
Oh, okay. Wait a second. Yeah, no, you're going with those ones.
This one's
going with those ones. Yeah.
Kind of looks like I got something coming out of my eyeballs. and then finally this is more of a summer taste. But they're upside down.
I've been shopping at the wrong place.
These are compliments of John
Sadowski,
yeah.
Sostovsky.
And I brought a friend to sit in. Oh. He came over to watch a Phillies game. I mean, the Phillies game tonight. Well, they're not playing tonight, but the Eagles. So yeah,
we have them.
Oh, you got with his juice.
Mine's riding the barrel pretty hard here. Yeah.
Anyway, Little Captain Navy of the fake space Navy.
Yeah.
That's right. But just that's lowly. That's peasant whiskey. I'm sure when he hits London, or when he hits St. Hill, he's gonna be drinking high-end Scotch, and he probably will need that for the entire event, because we have no clue what he's gonna be talking.
God,
about.
You said the word peasant. That immediately reminded me of one of the tech films I played a peasant in.
Oh, you did?
Were you the peasant pig that got spit on in the French Revolution?
I don't remember pig.
There's one scene where he goes, peasant pig, and spits on the guy.
Oh, yeah. You see, and that was a phrase from the movie. Yeah.
I do not remember that. What film was it, Aaron?
I forget.
Okay. Yeah, I do not remember that at all. I remember my favorite line from.
It might have been the Auditor's Code.
Okay.
Oh.
Was you I can't remember. I'll remember it later on.
I want to say, Sterling, that Rick Cruzen, I think, was the guy that said peasant pig.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, no one knows who Rick Cruz is. What are we talking about?
Rick Cruzen was an audio staff member, married Marty's ex-wife, Jure. He was a long-term. He blew numerous times, but he was a staple in the audio world at Golden Era Productions.
Okay.
Yeah.
And He was one of the characters that said what you said, Aaron. You peasant pig.
Okay.
In that film. Anyways.
All right. Here's Jackson's YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed to him yet, Gary Jackson Moorhead.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about these verbal declares, these secret declares. It's crazy. I mean, this did not, to my knowledge, this did not exist before Miscavige invented it sometime post 2006. But Gary, what are your thoughts on that? Did this exist before?
What was that? Before.
Yeah, whispering declares instead of issuing goldenrod.
Yeah,
spreading of the word. Yeah.
That was over a period of time where it transitioned into that, Aaron, and I do particularly remember there was these two individuals, ex-ASI staff members, Eric and Chris Johnson. That Eric had a bad bout of seizures, was looked after for a number of years. Anyways, after they had left, they called into the booth, and what it was a reference check on a job that they were applying for. And from that conversation, I had to call Shelly and speak to Shelly. I told her what I told them, and I basically gave a 51% good review, 48% bad review of their performance at Golden Air because they had blown so many times. I thought I was doing good by entering that they had a tardiness issue. So I thought that was the ethical thing to say. Shelly called me up to her office, and her and Dave were there, and she kind of jumped my chit about when people leave, it's all about them, Scientology still being available to them. So we didn't want to create any roadblocks for them creating a future for themselves. So she kind of slapped my hand for having said what I said about their tardiness.
So you were in trouble for not giving a more glowing review?
Yeah.
Okay, how's this relevant to what we're talking about?
Well, and from there on, it was also... she stated from that when it's not about the declares or anything, it's about people staying in touch with Scientology. So Eric and Chris Johnson, she had told me this was my first introduction to a double standard, that we purposely did not declare them, even though they should have been per L. Ron Hubbard directives and advices.
Wait, why should they have been declared? What did I miss?
Because they were int-based staff, and they left the Sea Org, and they automatically get declared.
But they routed out. They didn't blow, right?
Right. But the double standard.
But if I don't understand what you're saying, then neither do the viewers.
Okay.
Okay. So they should have been declared because why? Just because of the Scientology policy of declaring anyone who routes out from
the L. Ron Hubbard advice about anybody, even though you standardly route out, you are still declared. It's an added stink to your effort of leaving the Sea Organization.
Okay, but they didn't get declared, right?
That's correct. But they should have, and this is, I guess, at least my answer, I'm hoping, supports your question in that the introduction of the double standard, the silent declares, if they were to be brought back, allowed to come back, they'd have to go through ADE, do the ADE step. So they're in a declared status state as far as their minds were. But we didn't publish anything on purpose to keep it quiet.
I'm sorry. Let me clarify something. They routed out of the Sea Org standardly.
Yes.
Were they allowed, if they had paid their freeloader debts, to be public Scientologists?
After doing ADE. I know it doesn't sound right, Aaron, in that sense.
No. You're saying there's a special set of rules for in-staff members. I get that. But so they didn't get declared, and you were in trouble for not giving them a glowing enough job review. But so you're saying it was a secret declare.
Yeah.
Did these people ever stay in Scientology?
I actually do not know to this day. From that last phone call I had back in the early 90s, I actually don't know.
Okay.
Good question. But they were high profile security particles that I was dealing with, being handled with velvet gloves by RTC because they were ASI staff, ex-ASI staff.
Right.
They got busted. They chose to leave. They were brought from Los Angeles to the base to go through their ethics handlings and be under watch, the whole 9 yards. Turns out Eric had a very significant medical condition with seizures, like grand mal seizures. And that was just one of my pretty early on significant
experiences with
experiences of handling sensitive particles, inside.
Okay.
Jackson, if
Okay.
you mind me asking, sorry. So, and I get why that was relevant as far as the experience. We're obviously talking about today, Danny Masterson, a celebrity. Now, I believe you actually knew Danny Masterson,
Yeah.
and even maybe hung out with him a little bit when you left. So you probably know a little bit of his dynamics, his family in relation to that, because we are talking about the significance of the fact that, too late, little too late, but that Scientology apparently, based on reports, has declared Danny, but in a whispering campaign rather than a broad statement or an in writing goldenrod. So I think it was more of a take on what's your take on that? What do you think? You dealt with ethics and those sort of lines for the longest time.
Yeah.
So I think that's more where we were going with that question, if you don't mind.
Well, from my experience, and like I said, Eric and Chris were the beginning of me now experiencing this from moving forward in my SEER career, where special cases would be authorized by Dave Miscavige. He was the only one that would authorize such things. Otherwise, what do we do with these staff would be presented to him. In Danny's case, that would all be decided upon and proposed to Dave based off of the effects it would create by either publicly declaring him and what that effects would have to the image of Scientology, and or not publicly, and what benefits. It's all self-serving. It's just so self-serving to the double standard of the written, documented, green and white policy of people being declared for them being found guilty for their criminal acts.
Right.
So can I jump in here? I want to talk about two different double standards. And okay, because there's one double standard of actually declaring someone, but not broadly issuing it in writing, and just because
Right.
because for the record, unless I misunderstood, Jeff Augustine said that his sources were not shown the written declare. Even
Right.
those sources were just verbally told that Danny was declared.
Right.
Which is similar to what happened with me when Jenna Miscavige started speaking out publicly in 2006. Daniel Presta from OSA Inc. called me and said, well, she's not actually declared yet, but the policy on suppressive acts still applies, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So there's two different, one example of the double standard is actually declaring someone, not really putting it in writing, not really, showing it people in writing, but expecting people to honest to God treat them like an SP.
Right.
Right.
There's another double standard here of saying that someone is declared, but not actually demanding that everyone treat them like a full-blown SP. Here's an example of what I mean. Johnny Maurer, the notorious child abuser from California.
Mm-hmm.
He was secretly declared, shipped off to Clearwater, allowed to work at his dad's company here in Clearwater. I think is Mike Maurer, I think his dad's name. They were allowed to associate with each other. He was allowed to work alongside Scientologists. He was allowed to earn a living. He was allowed to exist in the Scientology ecosystem. But his dad wasn't allowed to talk to him when they weren't at work.
Wow.
So in other words, he was secretly declared, and he was supposed to work on his A to E steps. For the viewers, A to E is the steps you're supposed to do to get back into good graces with Scientology once you're expelled.
Right.
But he wasn't. It was so secret, Scientologists weren't even told he was declared. To me, those are two different double standards. Do you guys agree these are two different things?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
absolutely, Aaron. And
Okay.
the fact that we're having to go to such great effort to explain in Scientology policy, there's no shades of gray. You do this, that's the result. You get declared. That standard is to be maintained across the board as a Scientologist. As time went on, as I gave my example, and the more effects that people, I guess OSA and Dave realized the outcome of having declared people is those declares would hit the internet and it would create a bad image for the church. Plus, it was an internal document, which was out security, reaching the outside world. So that's where they stopped handing out what was to be a published declare. That's again a policy. So to go to all, up in the left-hand corner, it says all Remimio and all orgs, all staff on any declare. That once was a held standard per policy. And as time went on, starting in the 90s, if I remember correctly, that progressively changed because of the effects and the internet being the church's worst enemy.
I just feel the need to jump in here, and I'm sorry if the chat thinks I'm being too impatient, but I have to have a very clear idea of where we're going in this conversation.
I appreciate you having that.
So there's a difference between Miscavige not issuing things broadly just to keep the information from leaking, and just doing this thing where you don't have to really declare people anymore. It can just be a rumor. It can just be verbal. It doesn't even have to be approved. It doesn't even have to be anything. To me, these are completely different things. And I'm wondering which one of these things that you think is happening to Danny Masterson.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Danny is, and again, this is kind of a new ball field the church is finding themselves in, and they have a once publicized celebrity in the Scientology community now being found guilty and held accountable for his actions, and in the society's justice system, contrary to all the information that was kicked around about Danny leading up to him, internally, all the information kicked around internally about Danny's status from the original publicized reports of Danny's being taken to task for his essays. And he had been found guilty by a jury of 12 of his peers yet. That required its own internal handling. It's so messy. It's really hard to explain because it's so outside of what really should be done. But the decision-making is internally from everybody below Dave would be making these decisions and then proposing what it's to be, and either getting rejected or being approved, and therefore being able to be executed. So decisions would be flipping all the time. Literally, I would be, as an example, I won't give a specific topic, but if I was in the position of you need to come up with the solutions of what we're going to do with Danny Masterson, it's your job as a security chief of the Imp base to propose it. I propose it. It would be run up to Dave, reviewed quickly, and either approved or disapproved, and the actions would be carried out immediately. And that's how the decision would happen, that fast. It wasn't like proposing for the new color scheme for the buildings around the property, where that could take weeks to get approved. In sensitive issues like this, the people that are involved below Dave are having their little meetings and discussing what we should do and what the fallout's going to be if we choose that way, what the positive is going to be if we choose that way, making their proposal, submitting it to Dave, and getting authorization or not, and then executing it.
Okay. Let me see. Next, this question is for both of you guys. I want to know if you agree with me on this, and I'm almost hoping you don't, because it'll be more interesting. So I firmly believe, based on the policies of Scientology, Tom Cruise did not need to disconnect from Surrey, and he did it anyway. Whether that's because Katie's team insisted on it and he had to cave or whatever. Divorcing Tom Cruise is not a suppressive act and does not make you an SP. Right. Katie Holmes has never said one bad word about Scientology. Technically, there's nothing Katie Holmes did that would make her declared an SP, but we all know Scientologists see her as one for leaving Tom Cruise, for leaving Scientology. Right. But even if Katie, if anything, she's like a low-level SP, because she's never attacked Scientology, okay? Tom Cruise would have had a right as a Scientologist in the world of Scientology to maintain a connection to, did he just remove himself by accident?
He may have. Or he had to, oh, there he is.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good. That was strange.
Were you done with this conversation, Jackson?
No. So Tom Cruise, sorry about that, people.
Now it's my turn to be a little long-winded.
No, but when we disagree, we're just going to exit the video, Aaron. That's just so you know. We're just going to cancel out and then come back.
Okay. Here's what I predict is going to happen. Okay. I'm being so long-winded here. If, let's say, Danny's actually declared, whether it's a whisper campaign or whatever, let's say Miscavige has decided this dude is declared. We don't care if it's verbal, whatever, he's declared. Do you think, according to the rules of Scientology, Bijou would be allowed to grant his request to have visitation with their daughter?
No.
Okay. Go ahead, Sterling.
Okay, so I one thing that's always been a bit, and it's a great question, Aaron, and I agree with you and I disagree with you, though I don't think at the end there wasn't a point to necessarily disagree. But what I do think is I don't know, or nor do I understand, even though Danny Masterson really arguably was a pseudo Scientologist. Okay. Mostly just by association. We know he did not progress up the bridge. We know he was a terrible example. I don't even think he was. You stated, or you've heard, that he wasn't even at the big meeting with Tom Cruise.
He wasn't allowed to be there because he was considered too out ethics.
Right, exactly. I can feel with him on that one. I was never called any big meetings at Gold, so I understand how he feels with that. But so you go. I wonder how much of a Scientologist Bijou is. Does she lose anything? Does she have any perks that are going to go away by her just walking away from Scientology at this point, or do they hold something over her? So in that regard, I go, is she going to do that or not? And I get, based on the policy, we could even assume at this particular point in time that Bijou has not been told Danny Masterson isn't a suppressive person, and they could be doing the whispering campaign to the people that are just outright complaining, saying, what are we going to do? What are we saying about this? How do we have this guy convicted? And we've not shunned him yet. So I think there's a lot of questions up in the air about that. But I would be really fascinated to know what Bijou's actually thinking.
Okay, Jackson, let me ask you a different question.
Okay.
Do you think, according to the policies of Scientology, Tom Cruise had no choice but to disconnect from Surrey?
That's correct.
Explain.
Yeah. Well, because basically she, what do you call that? The sucker punched Tom publicly. She put a plan, a well thought out plan together to, when he walked in the door, handed him the paperwork. As I understand it, this is what happened. I really truly don't know, but by my understanding of what happened is she had a well thought out plan to, provide a separation of stepping away from Scientology and protecting her child, and what to do with Tom. And when he got back from where he was, here it is. He probably talked it over. Dave got on the phone and said that, this woman presented this to me, is leaving Scientology, strong-arming me in this. And, well, you can't be in touch. You can't be in contact with her.
Let me frame my question. Let me frame my question a little differently. Okay. And it sort of depends on which argument people want to make. Does Tom Cruise have to follow the rules more than your average Scientologist, or is there a special set of rules for Tom Cruise that he doesn't have to follow the same rules as other Scientologists? Which side of that equation do you come down on, Gary?
A special set of rules as directed by Dave. Yes. So
then I'll bring up my example from my childhood. My younger brother, he's 6 years younger than me, Darius DiMartino. His father, Frank DiMartino, was always a very dedicated Scientologist. He got himself declared a suppressive person at one point. Darius's father is not the same as my father. Frank got declared a suppressive person while he was doing his A to E and whatever. He was still allowed to, this was after his dad and my mom were divorced. He was still allowed to pick up Darius, take him back for the weekends for his visitation and everything. The fact that he was an actual literal declared SP did not override the legal rights that he had to take visitation of his son. And everyone in Scientology in Philly knew this. It was not a big deal. And that's just the way that it was. And that's not someone like Tom Cruise who can have his own set of rules. So, and I realize Scientologists are going to have different stories and different experiences with this sort of subject on parental custody and SP and not SP and all that kind of shit. But that's why I agree with you. There is a special set of rules for Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
But Tom Cruise sees himself as more of a dedicated Scientologist than everyone. And I feel like he would hold himself to a standard he wasn't even required to hold himself to.
Yes.
Right. You couldn't have said that better.
Yeah.
Right.
He's a zealot. He had no reason. She didn't commit anything in writing, anything that is dictated by the Church of Scientology as a suppressive act. She did not do. If you're following the letter of the law exactly, she did not do that. So her being,
and if anything, you're right. I'm sorry, Jackson. There's another example that I want to give you.
Okay.
When it comes to Clearwater, Florida, keep in mind Mike Rinder doesn't live in Clearwater, Florida.
Right.
I'm the biggest SP in Clearwater.
Yeah, buddy.
I'm on my neighborhood association, not an HOA. I don't subscribe to HOAs. A neighborhood association. We have monthly meetings.
Yep.
Do you know who comes to my monthly meetings? All the OTAs who live in my neighborhood. And they come specifically because I'm there, because they don't want to cede ground in the community to a big bad SP. Scientology actually tells as many Scientologists as possible to come to my meetings. They don't harass me. They talk to me. We chit chat. We laugh. We joke. We pretend like I'm not a big bad SP and they're not OT8 Scientologists. And you go, that should be against the rules, except they don't want to cede ground to an SP. And that's one of my arguments for why Tom Cruise, not only in any normal circumstances, should have been able to continue seeing Suri, but even in extraordinary circumstances, I think you're not going to cede your own daughter over to the SPs. You have to keep her as much as you can to prevent her from being fed all the evil black propaganda from all the big bad SPs.
Right.
Where do I have it wrong?
No.
You know, Aaron, I to be honest with you, I can't answer that because it's
you can tag Sterling in if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to, not give a long-winded answer is what I'm trying to formulate. So go ahead. Go ahead. I don't want to.
What about the short quips, the B-roll here?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to muster up here is the short quips. People leaving without it being publicly announced, Aaron, no goldenrod. It's a secret thing. That is more designed, from my experience, to attach a ball and chain to the individual. You can leave, but you need to hold up to our stated standards and not go public and all that. And eventually, whenever you want to get back online, you can get it. But you are declared SP, and that holds a chokehold on them. And they walk away with that continuing the fear factor as a Scientologist. And I don't want to harm or create a bad image for Scientology. So they know they're declared, and if their way back in is going to be through the ADE steps. They never know what happens thereafter. They never know what happens thereafter. We all leave blindly. One day there's 600, how many people there were, Sterling? 800
Something
personal
like that, yeah.
friends of mine on the base. Literally one day, and the next day I'm gone. Nobody knows anything. And it's kind of hard to explain, but it's very simple action in that it's all for the purpose to hold that person in a state of fear, attach a ball and chain.
Right. I can't, by the way, Jackson, I can't say 800 personal friends. I'm sorry. Because the uniform IC Pogo was so stingy over the 15 years I was there. I didn't get shit from her. So she is not on my list of friends. And there's a couple other I could obviously lift off. Jenny DeVock was another one. Yeah. But no, I agree with you. There's a different set of rules there. And that's what I think you're saying. There's even a different set of rules for Miscavige's family. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Because he would never openly declare Biddy or Ronnie. Not in a million years. No. You'll never see an issue. But he's okay with declaring Biddy's younger sister, Sarah. No problem with that. None whatsoever. He also has a double set of standards because when David Miscavige's mother, Loretta, rest in peace, she was a wonderful lady, passed away. Well, Dave went to the funeral. Biddy and Ronnie went to the funeral. He had connection with them. He had to talk to Ronnie about the real estate holdings and whatever will stuff was happening after that. But he could absolutely have a conversation with them. No problem.
David Miscavige and Ronnie Sr. both went to Loretta's funeral?
Ronnie Jr. Ooh, Ronnie Sr. may have been there. I don't know. But Ronnie Jr. for sure was there with Biddy.
Are you serious?
100%. And Ronnie Jr., as he told the story to me, had to tell Dave to back off because Dave was trying to tell him how to handle real estate. As you know, Ronnie Jr. has been in real estate for like 20 years now, 15 years, whatever it is. So, there was a little...
David Miscavige was personally visiting with and talking to his declared SP brother.
Absolutely.
Fucking jerkhole.
Yeah. I'm surprised I think even Jenna mentioned it in her book. Possibly, I can't remember for sure, but no, the rules do not apply to him. Just like we talked about his little basketball thing in the junior league with all the other smaller people. When he broke his leg, he he doesn't play by anyone else's rules. And
I'll never forget that day when he showed up at that.
Just so Scientologists, know it. Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you guys this. Danny Masterson has requested visitation. If Bijou grants the visitation or doesn't fight it, do you think that means she's on her way out of Scientology, or are they operating by their own special set of rules?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Because that entails her to bring the child, their child, down to wherever Danny's at, and go through that process and sit in the cinder block room with the stainless steel tables and say, "Hi, Daddy." I mean, that's a whole traumatic experience. So,
but imagine what an enemy they're going to make out of Danny. And I know people have said he won't speak out right away. Believe me, when his appeals are over, if they take his daughter away from him,
that door's kicked open. Danny,
come on now.
Danny's,
so it almost goes, someone else goes, so do you unofficially declare him and you don't make it official so that when Bijou gives him visitation, it's not technically against the rules? No, I realize everything I'm saying implies that anyone cares whether someone's following the rules. But I tell you, if I'm a rank and file Scientologist and I see convicted serial rapist and Scientologist in good standing or not good standing, we'll never know. If I see these guys getting special treatment, I'm pissed.
Yeah, but Aaron, you just made me realize something. Is that very solution that these people responsible within the church to come up, what are we going to fucking do with this? If Danny, if you keep your fucking mouth shut, you'll be allowed to see your kid. That's probably a wagering factor for him to keep his mouth shut.
I tend to think from time to time, watching so many SPTV channels, that if Osa watches a majority of these, we give them a lot of good ideas. Sometimes we may even direct them down the right path.
You're just realizing that now, Sterling? I mean, we do that, and Aaron does that every day, all day long.
I'm stating it publicly. I'm going, oh my God, sometimes they may, like, I would imagine they sent a report to Dave going, I think we should go this route, without telling him it was based on a live they saw with Aaron.
What are they saying on SPTV? That's so true. But I would see the fact that that Danny's been granted visitation rights is the church attorneys presenting it to his attorneys that either Danny plays along with this game or he no longer sees his child, and we pull the complete trigger on him and declare him, and they'll deal with the fallout of him going public later. But they're putting that ball and chain around his neck going, you shut the fuck up, you see your kid.
Right.
And, you know, that's the maternal instinct. Sure, I'll shut up.
Because here's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that Bijou stays in Scientology, that Danny is declared, that he makes a request for visitation. And, you know, even if Bijou fights it, but the court's granted anyway, and she has to do it, it still shows that Bijou's not going to get expelled from Scientology just because she maintains a connection to her daughter and her daughter has a connection to Danny. And the whole thing makes it clear that Tom Cruise is just a giant hypocrite and a degenerate and a horrible father, because even Bijou and Danny are allowed to share custody and or visitation. But Tom Cruise wouldn't. Wouldn't.
See, that's the stupidity of Dave, is he doesn't see these full pictures until we are now talking about an SP. He's like, I fucking told you guys about that months ago.
Arguably Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And arguably Tom Cruise. I've heard it from people that know him, that met with him several times while in the church. I'm not going to name the source. But just the guy, he's ambitious. He is driven. He is not that smart. And that does make sense to me, because if he's still a card-carrying Scientologist, he can't be that smart, because he has access to everything. And to make the statement, I'm going to do a video about this later this week, to make the statement in a Scientology event that he would like to be out there on vacation, he would like to take time off, is the most insulting statement I've ever heard. I was a Sea Org member when I heard that, and I thought, are you kidding me? Are you joking? And I was a giant Tom Cruise fan when I was in the Sea Org, before he was even a Scientologist, or I knew he was a Scientologist. So I lost all respect for him at that particular moment, because I knew, like, what are you talking about? You get time off. You get the weekends off all the time. Anyway, so he's arguably a dum-dum.
And Aaron, you brought up, I think in a recent video of yours, speaking of this very thing. I mean, you know, Dave still has to talk to, he's still got a public interaction to occur with the IS event. So that is also being taken into account of, what the fuck am I going to say? And he's yelling at his minions around him. What the fuck am I going to say? What the fuck am I going to say?
Let's use the F word a slightly less often.
What the frickety frackers am I going to say? with the
I was doing
flippity
so good, Jackson, holding back my swear words, and then
flippity flips, and I had to pull that trigger. Sorry, but you were really going down a very valid path in that, recognizing the challenges that, and Dave's created this own mess for himself. I think he pulled the trigger way too early on having a next event, because I don't see him having another one anytime soon after the IS event. But so much is already put into play now that he's committed to it.
But Jackson, they've already promoted the New Year's event live at the Shrine Auditorium is back.
wow.
Oh, really?
They promoted it in the
that's
Auditor
first-
magazine.
That's the
Shrine
first I heard of
Auditorium.
that. Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't mean he has to show up.
Has he ever not?
Well,
Only to Auditors Day. Auditors Day was the only event that he wouldn't show up to.
yeah, but he doesn't have any executive staff, no technical representation, no other people to fill that role.
Yeah.
But
When-
anyways,
He
I want to stay focused on you bringing up the fact of here and now. He has trouble with this whole Masterson thing, because they're going to have they're asking and they're potentially going to ask him. At least Dave is aware that it's being chewed over in their own minds, the whales' minds. How can we have a convicted R in our ranks? And he's not publicly being put on a display under the suppress a person declare.
It's true. It's true. It because anyone else who had I mean, when I was in the Sea Org, there was some public guy who had just confessed to basically abusing it. I think his own kids, not someone else's kids, in the most horrible way that we won't have to detail. And he was ordered to sec checking, and it was already known this guy was being declared. They were just squeezing him for as much money as possible before they declared him. And so it's like, it's very unusual for someone. You know, as soon as I say this, I realize it's not true. I was going to say it's unusual for someone like Danny who's done what Danny has done not to be declared. But look, James Barber didn't get declared.
Right. And
James Barber didn't get
here's
declared.
an analogy, because I want to help provide a specific thing. Okay, the movie industry, that's all labor contracts and that's a money-making machine at play, right? So people's agents have to learn how to negotiate one of their actors going astray, either getting caught up in a drug field thing, a car accident, harm some, just some sort of public image occurrence, right? And that happens, it comes out the wash, they get held accountable. In the Scientology world, kind of the same theory is at play, is the image that gets created as these actions. So the church mucks up this whole situation and could have kept it simple. It's like Danny got, we don't have any say in it. He was held a criminal, found an actual criminal and did what he did. And now he's in prison, and so be it. Let's move on. But no, they're making an issue out of it to preserve their image unnecessarily. I mean, they're just mucking up something they don't even need to really address, to be honest with you, only to maintain that suppressive person status, that last final chokehold control factor they have for their own parishioners. I mean, the idea of a suppressive person being declared has been neutralized by, it don't mean anything. It just, you can say it by dinner muster. 10 people can be declared, but it usually per policy takes a whole string of efforts from the ethics gradients. That's what a normal Scientologist thinks, is like, what happened to applying L. Ron Hubbard policy? And suddenly, go ahead.
You just reminded me of two questions. And then I want to get on to the Tom Cruise smuggling David Miscavige across borders in his private jet. Jackson, there's two issues that I want to get your opinion on. Okay. So I learned something this week. I learned that in Scientology, there used to be something called a writ of expulsion.
Yeah.
And, the ethics gradients, the last two ethics gradients in Scientology, the final ethics gradient is expulsion. The one before that is declaring someone a suppressive person.
Correct.
And I've never understood why they were separate gradients. Do you have enough historical experience to know when and where and why the writ of expulsion stopped being used?
Yeah, because in the justice system, no matter what gradient was applied, there was always intent to keep a door cracked open for people such as the ADE steps. A writ of expulsion, as I understood it, shut that door on anybody forever returning to Scientology.
But the very ethics policy that gives the ethics gradient of expulsion is the same policy that says never shut the door. So that couldn't have been what that was.
Well, that's what I understood and had on, has understood the entire time I was there. If you got declared and then you got a writ of expulsion, you couldn't even do A to E. You were just forever cast to be gone.
Well, someone sent me a copy of their writ of expulsion, and on the writ of expulsion, it gives them the option to do the A to E.
Oh, so that was my misunderstanding.
So why have
I had
both?
always understood it that way. Huh?
I know.
Yeah, why have both?
It doesn't make sense.
I know.
No,
And it's,
no, it
again, they muck up their own set standards. It's just,
Okay.
It does, because it's part of administration technology that L. Ron Hubbard wrote that absolutely makes no sense, and everything is circular. So yeah, it would make complete sense that they had another name.
If this whole conversation, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah.
Well, that brings me to my second point. But was there something you wanted to make about the first point?
Just this whole conversation should be proof of how much Scientology has mucked up their own simplistic justice system, to where there was one standard to function from, and then when the double standards came in, it blew everything out of the water. It's almost like, let's compare it to some technical thing. When you go in for your counseling, get a session, you no longer have to get an FM because you only ended the session because you FN'd at the end of the session. So you don't need to go to the examiner anymore. But all these years, people went to the examiner as that set standard, the verification that the auditor did a good job. And just using that as a small example, but Dave Miscavige has.
Did someone say you don't have to go to the examiner anymore?
No, I'm just using it as an example that it's that easy to change their own ways, but yet all the parishioners are happy-go-lucky going along and doing the standard thing, and they expect if they do a violation or some high crime, they're going to get declared. It's that simple. But then they start witnessing and hearing all these double standards, and they're going, what the hell? What the hell? What the hell? But nobody, and the fear factor keeps them questioning it in place.
Okay, here's the second point. It's a very interesting conversation to have, whether if someone goes, well, Danny's Masterson, it's not a real official written declare, it's a verbal declare, it's one of these rumor declares, secret declares. Technically, a secret declare is still in writing. You just don't really inform anybody about it.
Right.
There's a very interesting conversation to be had as to, does it even matter? Is there even really a different, like, if it's coming down from David Miscavige, it doesn't matter if it's real or fake. It's real because Miscavige is saying it's real. That's one interesting conversation to have, right?
Right. Yes, sir.
But then on the other hand, you go, but if there's no difference between putting it in writing and not putting it in writing, then explain to me why Jenna Miscavige was never declared. Explain to me why Ronnie Sr. was never declared. They're clearly, in someone's mind, there's a difference.
Yep. Self-serving to Dave. I mean, that's.
So what are you guys' thoughts on, one, is there really a difference these days? And then help me understand, someone seems to think there's a difference.
Right. You know, I've kind of hit my end of this conversation. I'm like, I think we've talked about it enough. It's what it's going to play out, and it's
no. You're not getting the question. I want to. Well, what do you mean it's got? I'm not talking about how it plays out. I want to get your opinion on. We'll just take it one at a time then.
Yeah. No. Ask again, please.
Does it really matter if it's a quote unquote secret verbal declare? Isn't it all the same these days?
Yes.
Correct.
I think it does not matter.
It does not matter.
Nope.
Right. Then why didn't they declare Jenna?
Well, Jenna's still 12 years out, right? From today, I believe, is when she left. So there's a big time difference in that, and a lot has changed internally since then, or at least reportedly has changed. So why not Jenna? Jenna's, I think, is a slightly different thing in that she is a Miscavige. Everyone knows her. That's purely a bad optic for David Miscavige, and he wanted the least amount of people possible to know about it, which was wonderful, because then Jenna completely ruined that plan by getting on major talk shows, by writing a book, and all that sort of stuff. So, no, I don't think it particularly matters. I think he's kid gloves with his own particular family.
Oh yeah,
for sure, or anyone that related to him. Mark told me when looking at the spy files that Dave apparently asked for reports specifically on Justin, Jenna, Ronnie, Biddy, and myself to go directly to him, which I was surprised that I was included on that list. I can understand Justin and Jenna, but I mean, he is so acutely aware and careful about his personal, and he's obviously blown that too, because I believe his sister got arrested for drug charges and slumlording in Clearwater, which is like, I mean, that dude's family's more messed up than pretty much anyone's. But again, I think, as we've stated with everything, it is different. It is solely based on David Miscavige's whim who we're talking about and how it relates to him in general. Danny Masterson doesn't relate to Dave personally, obviously, but then that's just an optical thing for Scientology in general. Again, like you say, Aaron, I don't think it makes a difference at this point. We also know SB declares are just complete trash because they can really declare you for anything. Hey, I got declared for going to a baseball game when my first declare issue came out on the 4th of July to see the Dodgers and Angels. Like, really? You know, that was it. That's why I got declared. They had nothing else on me. So, yeah.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Jenna being a Miscavige because she was clearly aware that mattered when they were going to put out the final issue on her. She was like, Don't put Jenna Hill. Put Miscavige on it. I want everyone to see that this is Miscavige you're doing this to. Put Miscavige on it. And they wouldn't do it. They put it out as Jenna Hill.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Even when they issued an internal document about my mom, Biddy, when she was there, and I'll never forget this. It was some goldenrod. I can't remember what exactly it was about, but they wrote Biddy Blythe. And I'm like, Biddy, she was still married to Ronnie at the time. I'm like,
okay, that would be a great example. Those two examples you folks gave. Yeah. If it's all self-serving, if it's going to mess with the cut of his jib, things are going to change. It's going to be custom made to satisfy Dave.
It's out.
Yeah.
So they don't get yelled at or go to the RPF.
To whether Dave could fit in the cargo bay of a G550. Was that what we were jumping on to?
I don't think he would be held in the spare wheel cover.
No, that they wouldn't have room for the wheel to go up. Jackson, did you ever fly with Dave private or make any arrangements for those or not?
No, when the big IRS announcement came, I was all prepared to. When the IS event was going to be held in Australia, my tickets were paid for, everything was scheduled, and then suddenly they got their IRS, the war is over. And
so you were going to fly commercial with him.
I actually don't know. I mean, I wasn't aware of
tickets.
I just knew that my flight and I was going to be flying with Dave. So how we were going to get there could have been on the Partridge bus or a G4. I don't freaking know.
No. I mean, clearly, and I've said this in other videos, and Aaron, I know we've talked about it. I have a personal beef with the fact that this guy is spending parishioner money and living the life of a billionaire.
Oh,
and Aaron had a fantastic conversation with his lawyer friend, Zach. Did I get that right?
Yes.
The linebacker, well, actually basketball player. And so I wanted to chirp, whatever. On that because I'm quite familiar with private aviation and stuff like that. And I wanted to, and again, I'm sure we have pilots and even stewardesses and even people that operate at private airports like that. So I wanted to just clarify some of the things I heard just to make sure we're exactly specific on that. Now, most people see private flights on Instagram and you see all these cool videos of the G5s and the Global Express and the Falcons. These are all private airplanes. They all range in sizes. Some are intercontinental. Some, can only fly 5 hours on a single thing. Either way, in most cases, when you're flying international, and I'll give a perfect example of the Los Angeles area. So a few years back, if you were flying from anywhere in Europe or outside the United States back into Los Angeles, you would have to fly back into LAX because LAX had an immigration station for people to come in and get checked through. Okay. Then, due to the large amount of traffic into LA, a smaller airport in the Valley, which is the Van Nuys Airport, they actually set up a separate little wing of immigration so that private planes coming in to the United States would be checked through immigration. Every private plane must have a manifest and a passenger list. It's before they leave the country, they must have a scheduled time for arrival in the United States, vice versa. And you do go through every normal procedure that any commercial passenger would go through, except that it's more of a private environment. You're not waiting in a long line because they have to schedule you. So they don't have too many people landing at the same time in the same place. And they do that at what's called an FBO, which is a fixed base operation. So Van Nuys, for instance, has about 4 to 5 FBOs, Atlantic Aviation, Signature Aviation. So when you fly in some cases, the customs agent will come right onto the plane. They'll collect your passports. They'll check everyone on the plane against the manifest of which they were provided. Right. So Dave, if he was not on the plane when they landed, they obviously would have known he was there when they took off or was reported to be there. And they're going to question that fact thoroughly. And yes, your bags are going to go through a scanning process on the way into the country.
Okay.
So no matter what, someone's going to be able to track and find out where he is, or if he was on the manifest, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sure.
So you cannot sneak someone in on a suitcase in a private jet.
Unless you're flying into Saudi Arabia.
You want to hear a funny thing? When I was traveling with Dave once, we had the hired security, the Talon security force with us. We called them the hired heaters because they carried heaters, which was another name for a sidearm. We used to coordinate our movements to have the hired heaters go through security, the scanning devices, set the alarm off to distract them so Dave could walk through without having to go through that procedure. That's how detailed his little entourage would be dialed.
You lost me there. I got to hear that again.
So imagine Dave, his hired security forces, and me going through the airport to check in on a flight.
Commercial or private?
It was commercial.
Okay.
This was back in the mid 90s. So, early 90s. So, to avoid Dave, it was just whatever shit would just come. Stuff would come out of his mouth. Sorry about that. Stuff would come out of his mouth. It's like, I don't want to go through that. So they would develop a plan of the hired security would go through to set the security alarms off. So they get the pat down and Dave will be scooted around.
Oh, he was just trying to avoid a pat down. He still had to go through the metal detector and everything.
Yeah, but the distraction and attention, I'm trying to highlight the attention that Dave, how much it bugs him to have to go through people, where Sterling says he still has to present his passport to people and the manifest to verify that Dave is actually on that plane. Dave can't get around that. That bugs the crap out of him that the people that are checking him, are they cleared? Has anybody checked this person that is checking my passport before they check my passport?
That's actually an interesting point because technically speaking, whoever's working at those private airports could serve him.
Well, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And,
it's
not like those conversations. Aaron, just so you know,
we're-
it's not like those conversations haven't already been had. But
we're either telling people how to serve him, or we're telling OSA how to get around getting him served at these locations.
The OSA listeners in the chat right now are doing a own separate debrief of, oh shit, Dave's ticket's already bought. You guys, anyway.
Now let's make it clear too, though. If you're a celebrity, because people keep mentioning the Amber Heard situation, and I don't know how she did that. Of course, if you have a carry-on, and you keep it close to you, that's a potential. You could still walk through security with the carry-on and it doesn't go through the scanner. But again, you would be distracted. You would be distracted by a celebrity for sure. And the one thing that's nice about immigration in these FBOs is that they're a little starstruck. They will be. Now, of course, you're not going to be starstruck by Dave at all, right? If anything, you're going to want to
probably be like, "Oh,
extra.
Little boy, do you want a set of wings on this flight? Is this your first time? Do you want to see the cockpit?"
They're going to give him a pair of wings, thinking this is his first time, and and even when Dave goes in the cockpit and he asks the pilot how we're doing, he wants to look out the front. The height of the front dash on the G5 is too high for him to see out, so he's just going to have to stick to his window. That would be the only way to see out, but. So no, just to clarify, if he's not sneaking around that way. Now, inside of Europe, or not really inside the United States, absolutely, because no one's going to check.
This would even extend to Travolta's personal runway on his property. Dave still couldn't get around immigration because John, to hold his FAA license, has to uphold compliance to the government travel policies. And Dave couldn't just fly in and out of Travolta's property and bypass everything. He still has to, because he goes in the air, FAA holds a tight line.
There's only one place I know, Aaron, in the Middle East, where you can actually go through U.S. immigration as you get on the plane to fly from the Middle East over to the U.S., and that is Dubai or UAE, United Arab Emirates. And you can actually get checked through. So once you land, you can just get off, pick up your bag, and go. And that's the only time I've ever seen that. But again, that doesn't apply to Dave. He's private. That stuff's super restricted. I think the only country he could fly into without being noticed would be Saudi Arabia. Because
Munchkinville.
Yeah, if you're a prince in Saudi, they don't check on the way in at all. So that's how they used to bring all the booze in and then sell it for like 3 times the price.
Wow. Did you hear my lawyer friend Zach's crazy proposal for if you were a process server and you were willing to do some time in jail, the real way to serve Miscavige would be to crash a car into his motorcade, have a car accident so that everything had to stop. And I was like, you could do that? He's like, you can do it any way you want, but you might go to jail for it, but you could still actually serve him, because that's the only time Miscavige is going to be on public property. He's going to land in a private airport. He's going to drive on public roads. He's going to pull into the St. Hill property. He's exposed when he's on the public roads.
You know, it would be amazing if they did a Mission Impossible serving where they somehow blocked the traffic, got his car to stop, and they had a guy craned in like Tom Cruise and drop down and then just serve him the little piece of paper and then pull up again. Let's see it. Come on. They need to get creative, right? But anyways, yeah. Again, and before, I want to make sure I make the point. Again, under the radar Scientologist Dave Miscavige is flying in a private jet on your hard spent backs, on the dollars that you donate to the Church of Scientology. He's living like a king.
Yeah.
Come to grips with that. It's not a good thing. It's terrible.
He lives like a king and he thinks he's above the king. So I don't even know what you would define it after that, but that's his mental state. Everything, it's just amazing that.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm surprised? I'm surprised that he didn't, going to Sea Org ranks. So L. Ron Hubbard called himself Commodore. There was at one point 5 or 6 captains. I'm surprised he didn't come up with some rank between captain and Commodore to call himself, so that he didn't have to share a rank with him.
Yeah, and that's funny. It's funny that you mentioned that. I guarantee you he dug deep, and I think that's a little bit what tantalized him with coming up with chairman of the board, because I do remember hearing the folklore that how he came up with that name is through the Frank Sinatra thing out of Vegas, because Dave used to frequent Vegas, and I was going to say this on the heels of Sterling, that moment you felt insulted by Dave's actions. The chairman of the board, that's so non-Sea Org. It's just so non-Scientology, but it sounded cool and it looked good on all the envelopes of the traffic. The communication would go to and from him. COB, I'm chairman of the board. What friggin' board?
No, let's remember, he got his power from the lawyers and having the external communication lines. The external people is how he was able to start and continue his power. So that's not Sea Org related at all.
Yeah.
And he got put in that position. It's funny that,
but
whether intentionally or not, L. Ron Hubbard had Dave Miscavige in that position, and he picked the worst person possible, the most ambitious and vindictive person to be in that position. And that's how he crushed everyone along the way up.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah.
I remember the first time truly feeling insulted by his actions when I was up at the Star of California, that the clipper ship that was built on the outside of a building to look like a ship was docked at a Polynesian dock, Aaron, at the Golden Era. You've probably seen pictures of it. I was in the officers' lounge of the bar up there, and Bonnie Musell, who used to serve Tom and him the meals, Dave and Tom walked in, and there was that old circular round oak table that was in that room. Remember that, Sterling?
I do.
Okay. They both walked in and sat and slammed on the table these 2 big fat rolls of cash wrapped in rubber bands. It was bigger in circumference than a softball. It was really hard for them both to hold in one hand, but they both slapped it down, and they just said that that's what they won in Vegas. And there was over 20 grand per roll.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, he's a Sea Org member. It was just an insult that I'm back here working, and he just came back from Vegas gambling. It was,
right.
Of course you couldn't say anything, but I just distinctly remember, and Bonnie and I looked at each other when they walked out the room, and they left the cash just sitting there. I don't know what happened to it, but it was there. They both had their own rolls, and
somehow when they came back, there was only 15 in each roll left.
And Bonnie had a new car.
Jackson had a pair of shoes that didn't have holes in them anymore. Yeah.
Now this is an interesting contrast, right? So I didn't see that, Jackson. That would have shocked me to the core.
Yeah.
I saw the motorcycles and I saw the cars. Aaron, you didn't see any of that, right?
Yeah.
But
the only thing I saw was his BMW, and I didn't care about that.
Right. And you arguably at the time you told me, you would have been like, okay, great. But you would have been, if he has it, then I should have it.
I wouldn't have cared about any of his material things. I would have been like, sweet. I was Team Miscavige all the way.
Yeah, so were we.
Even more so than L. Ron Hubbard. Like, I'm not one of these people who only cared. There was a strong contingent of people who were really angry if they thought he was doing something that was contrary to what L. Ron Hubbard wanted. I could not possibly have cared less. I was like, is L. Ron Hubbard here? No. Where is he? Dead? Okay, then. I guess we know who matters.
And that's what he wanted. Yeah, that's what he wanted. He wanted that new sort of I think Scientology at some point. But I told you Aaron the other day, it tickles me to death that the biggest pain in David Miscavige's ass is another guy from Philadelphia. I love
guarantee
that.
you.
Dude, I love that. Besides the fact that Justin helped Rosemary escape and Jenna wrote a book and all of it, that just cracks me up. I mean, it's just coming from all ends. If you don't mind, I have a hard out at 3:35, 3:40.
So in 2 minutes for 7 minutes?
Yeah, but we could do questions if you want. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's do a few quick super chats. Yeah. Guys, if you're one of the almost 4,000 people watching right now on the 3 channels, hit that like button for us, guys. It actually does help.
Wow. These are AA-run numbers.
Okay, Joni Cummings. Thanks, Aaron, for doing the video yesterday. My pleasure, Joni. Telperion Sterling. Who do we need to bribe to get more content from you?
Aaron.
All right, Dave Owens. If Tom Cruise didn't disconnect from Surrey, it would set a bigger precedent than some goofball like Danny Masterson. Folks may say, but Tom is seeing his kid. Yeah, I mean, it's true. It's true.
That's right.
Steve Britton, what are the implications of a court mandating visitation by a child to an SP parent? Does that make the child PTS? It would definitely make the child PTS, and it would probably make Bijou ineligible for auditing until the child turned 18 and disconnected from Danny. Do you guys agree with that?
Yes.
Any other take on it? I know Sterling's like, hurry up.
I was reading the chats. I got distracted. There's some great chat. I'm sorry, I was reading the chat. So forgive me.
You can star them if you want.
I started one that was hilarious about the swearing. So please, if you see that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Telperion, what is the David Miscavige in a suitcase fetish about? Bring out the GIMP.
Oh my God. Bring out the GIMP. Yeah, right, buddy.
We were just conjecturing about how he may get into the event without being noticed.
Yeah. Oh, I just realized I'd skipped a bunch. My bad. Fallon, question. Do you know if the cast of that 70s show is losing out on syndication royalties because of Masterson? I see a lot of old TV shows streaming, but that 70s show isn't one of them. What they missed out on was the exclusive streaming rights that nobody opted to pick up. That's what they lost out on. Another earlier one from Telperion. Do Danny, Scientology, and Bijou not have a ton of collateral on each other? Scientology on additional Jane Does to turn Danny's sentence into without parole. Danny on Scientology's cover-up. Scientology on Danny on Bijou's wrongdoings. Isn't this a Mexican standoff? Yes, it is. And I'm not sure you're allowed to say that word anymore.
My head is spinning after that last one. Like I got a headache from reading that.
John Sostovsky, Jackson, do you have your Apple Box boy?
Yeah, he's up there on the shelf right there.
Nice. Dave Miscavige says, hi there, it's Captain Davey from the Fake Space Navy.
See, that always creeps me out when that pops up. Always.
Yeah. Oh my God, that freaking hair it is.
Yeah. And that was the last one. Whatever you starred did not show.
It didn't. Let me see if I can.
Unless you start it much earlier.
Much earlier, yeah. I started halfway through Jackson's first explanation, so it was like 30 minutes ago.
Oh, I got it. I might have unstarted because I didn't know why it was there. Sorry.
Oh yeah, so it was just funny. He says my husband says he doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, and he doesn't swear. Oh fuck! I just left my cigarettes at the bar. I'll be back in a second.
I did see that one, and I did unstart it. I did.
Thank you so much.
All right, I know you got a heart out, so let's thank everyone for tuning in this afternoon. And if you haven't hit that like button, please do. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do. And check out, I'm going to link to both Sterling's and Gary and Jackson's channels in the description down
Much
below.
Appreciated, Aaron.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
See you later.
Bye, people.
Rock and roll songs, kick right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.